Before we get into today's video, I do want to let you guys know that this video is for entertainment purposes only. Please remember to be kind to everybody everywhere in your everyday life, in your home, in the grocery store, and especially in the comment section down below. Please do not show hate to anybody, anywhere. Good morning, my lovelies, my beauties, my friends. My name is Christina and welcome to my channel. If you're new here, thank you so much for clicking on this video. I really hope that you will subscribe, stick around, take a chance in hearing some things that I have to say. And if you are a returning subscriber, y'all already know, y'all are my babies. So good morning, good morning, good morning. How is everybody doing today? I hope you all are having an amazing day. I hope you all had a wonderful week, and I hope you guys are ready for a good weekend. You guys, it is almost June of 2021. How? I feel like just yesterday, it was March of 2020, and the whole world was in an uproar and things was just going crazy, and holy cow. But it is almost summertime. We're going to be positive. We're going to get outside. We're going to get some sun on our face. We're going to feel some, some wind through our hair, right? Okay, so in today's video, we are going to be talking about the case of Susan Monica. Have you guys heard about this case? Whew. This is a very, very interesting case, you guys. And this is one of those stories, I think every case that I research affects me in a certain way. And every now and then, one of these cases will actually change me in a way. And I feel like this is one of those cases that has actually changed me. So what I'm going to do is, as my per usual, I'm going to tell you guys the whole story. And then at the end, I'm going to give you guys my personal opinion. And I'm going to also tell you guys how this case has changed me. So stick around to the end and let's just start at the beginning. Now, I could not find anything, I want to say not a lot, but anything about Susan Monica's childhood, her family involvement, who she was raised by, what kind of experiences she's had, literally nothing. And I've seen other news reporters say that it is unclear what Susan's past was like. Maybe she'll write a book one day, maybe she'll speak out. I don't know. But what we do know is that Susan Monica was born Stephen Buchanan in California, July 1948. Susan served in the U.S. Navy, and she was actually in the Vietnam War as well. Susan was later honorably discharged from the military, and then after she was discharged from the military is when she began to live her life fully as a woman. Susan began a very, very successful career as an engineer, and she was described as very hardworking, very dedicated to anything she did. She was the type of woman that when you hired her, not only was the job going to get done right, but she was going to go above and beyond. She was the type of woman that came in early, stayed late, put on her work boots. Honey, she could weld, she could do it all. Very, very hardworking, stayed to herself, very quiet, but that was just the life that she lived. Susan later purchased a 20-acre lot in a rural area called Wilmer, Oregon. And the property that she purchased was completely underdeveloped. So it was basically nothing but trees and bush and just wooded area, which was perfect for Susan because she wanted to have her own little, world back there and develop what she wanted to develop and just basically stay away from people. She was a very simple woman. She didn't need much in life. She was an old country gal, and that was it. So when she got this piece of property, she started to clear it. Now, there's plenty of pictures of Susan. I mean, this woman, honey, like I told you guys, she would weld. She'll drive a tractor. She'll drive those big machines, with the claw that digs and picks things up. Like, she could do it all. So she got her machines out there, cat machines, whatever they are, and she started clearing the lot. After she got what she wanted cleared, she built a big barn. She got a whole bunch of pigs, chickens, and at this point she's just an old farm woman. Okay, she's working on this farm, taking care of her pigs, living the bare minimum. Susan also started a business called White Queen Construction, where she built iron fences and gates. So you guys know, like when you drive into certain properties, they'll have those big iron fences. Like, she did that. She welded them and she did it all herself, and she was, again, very well known for that. Her business did excellent. But when she got finished working, she went back to her property with her darn pigs and her chickens. Now, I've heard conflicting stories. This was actually an episode on Snapped, so you guys can check that out if you want to. On Snapped, they said that Susan did not have any running water or any electricity on the property. Okay, she was living, again, bare minimum. But I was like wondering, like, how did she give water to the pigs? Like, how did that work? Later, other people would testify that had actually lived on her property before, that she did have running water there, and she didn't have electricity, but she used batteries, like big time batteries with everything, and she had solar power. So she would use it for just like the very, very bare minimum of things that she needed. She didn't even have a bathroom on this property, you guys. Like, she went out in the back, honey, dug a hole, picked a leaf up, and just, I'm talking about rough. Okay, rough, honey. Didn't bother nobody, though.
There was no bathroom on site.
Let's say this is her barn right here, and you go underneath it. There's the pig pen right there, and there was like a little, just a little area to live in.
Very rough around the edges. Anyways, she would go into like the different like Denny's or whatever little restaurants they had there, and she would eat, or she would go into the grocery stores and, you know, buy food she had to eat, or pig stuff. She fed her pigs a lot of scraps and just different stuff, but people would say that when she would come into like a restaurant, at first people were taken back by her, very intimidated by her, because she was a big woman. She was really tall. She was heavier set, and she always came in dirty because she worked and lived on a farm and didn't really have a bathroom to probably shower in, but she's dirty. She hung out with pigs all day, but people would say that if you took 5 seconds to talk to her, she was the sweetest, nicest old lady. She was described as somebody in the community as just a rough old lady living off of grid. Susan was well known in her town because she would do anything to help anybody. Again, she was quiet. She stayed to herself. But if somebody needed help, she would do what she could to help them.
She was a caring lady. She really was. She helped anybody she could. I mean, she's always doing stuff for people. Like he said, go to Gleaners, pick up food for them, and deliver it to all the elderly people that she knew.
She ran ads on Craigslist for people that wanted to do odds and end jobs that needed, you know, just a place to stay, because she had such a big piece of property. So there was multiple people that came up and spoke up after this whole incident happened that said that they had lived on her property because they saw her ad on Craigslist. So you had like this one couple who saw her ad on Craigslist that said, you know, if you want to trade place to stay for a place to park your RV or whatever it is, you can. They brought their RV, stayed on her property for a while, and then did little odds and ends, worked for her, you know, fed the pigs, whatever she needed, and they could stay there. With her pigs, she also sold her pigs. So people in the community would come to her because they wanted, you know, that organic, fresh meat. We're going to get there. And they would purchase a pig. Now, Susan would butcher these pigs herself. Honey, I don't know how you did it. Like, was she just slinging the pigs around and just doing it all? She would butcher them herself, and she would take the meat for the person that bought the pig to them, okay? She would also, when the pigs got to the place where they could be butchered, she would butcher them and take the meat to different elderly communities, like different, you know, retirement homes and stuff like that, and she would donate this pig meat to them so they could have, you know, different types of food. So she was known to do, I guess, volunteer work in that way as well, but also just stayed to herself. She wasn't going to be at Sunday church sitting around at the table talking to people. She wasn't that type of person, but she was very kind. Now, in 2013, Monica ran an ad in Craigslist looking for a handyman to help her build a house. At this point, I guess she decided she was tired of living in her little bedroomish area. What happened was she had this big pig pen. I'm talking about she had pigs everywhere. They were stepping in their own. I mean, it was disgusting. Okay, just that's what it is, disgusting. And she had this little area off to the side of the pig pen where she basically slept with her pigs, but it was separated.
I don't know how anyone can live like that, living in a little room with just a bed and TV and a little stove. She said she got electricity from solar power, which she had batteries all over the place there. They were all in that little room of hers. I mean, she'd sleep next to the pigs.
And so since Monica decided that she was going to build this house, she ran the ad in Craigslist looking for a handyman that could help. A guy named Robert Haney came to her and said that he wanted the job. They seemed to kind of hit it off as much as they needed to, and she told him, great, you're hired for the position. Robert lived in this little camper, and he came and brought it and pulled it onto her property. Now, Robert would basically do anything she needed him to do at this point. Like, he was doing carpenter work, he was doing, farm work, he was doing whatever she needed. In exchange for half of his pay was the fact that he got to live there on the property, and then the other half she gave him in just cash. Now, when things started to take a very strange turn in this little town of Oregon was when Robert just disappeared and went missing. He disappeared around September of 2013, and his kids really started to get concerned with him when they didn't hear from him after Christmas. So they didn't hear from him at Halloween time. They didn't hear from him at all at Thanksgiving. Then Christmas comes around. This is when they started to really kind of panic. New Year's came around and they were just basically freaking out. So all of his kids, who were adults at this time, they got together and they drove to the property where their dad had been staying. When they got there, they saw his little trailer, but they also saw Susan. So they went up to Susan first and said, hey, have you seen my dad? We haven't heard from him. We're very concerned. And she said, I haven't seen him in months. I actually don't know where he is. His dog is running around here. Like, can you take his property? Like, get it off of my property. If he's not going to be here helping, he needs to get his stuff and you guys can take it. His kids then went to go into his RV to see if they could see anything that would help them figure out where their dad was. And one of his kids would later testify that when they walked into the RV, the hairs on their neck stood up. Pause. Before I go any further, I do want to go ahead and give you guys a trigger warning. This story is pretty graphic, very, very graphic, okay? It is going to be a rough one. If you guys are sensitive to any kind of gore or anything like that, this is probably not the video for you. You guys should just stop watching now and go on to something else because it's going to get rough here real soon. Okay, so his son walks into the RV and said the hairs on his neck stood up from what he saw. He saw everything that his dad would use or any human person that would go anywhere would take with them. His wallet, his information, his dad's tools. His kids would later say that their dad, Robert, didn't go anywhere without his tools. I mean, that was his livelihood. That's how he supported himself, was being a handyman, a laborer, odds and end jobs. His dog. They knew that their dad would not leave without his dog. His kids were completely freaked out. They immediately left and went to file a police report. Now, when they filed this police report, the cops at first, they were like, this is a grown man. He's a wanderer. We'll look into it. Okay, we'll look into it. Because Robert was actually known to be a drinker. He drank a lot. He did whatever else he did. And they just figured, okay, he's off on a binge somewhere doing something else. But the cops said that they would look into it. When they started to look into asking people, questioning people, asking Susan, she told them the same story. She hadn't seen him in months. She has no idea where he is. She had a great reputation in the town. They had no reason to not believe her. They couldn't find anything on him. And the fact that Robert used cash for everything, he didn't have a debit card or a credit card, everything was cash. They just could not trace him. They soon found out that Robert actually had a food stamp card. So they ran a check on it and they saw that in December, his food stamp card was actually used at a local Walmart there in their town. They went to the Walmart. They pulled the security footage. And when they pulled the security footage of the person using his card, they saw that it was Susan. Immediately, the investigators are like, okay, why is she using his card? That is very fishy. The investigators get back and they get a warrant so they can search her property. When all the investigators go to search Susan's property and to speak to her, and they were going to arrest her on fraud for using his food stamp card, they came deep, you guys. I mean, there was like what I saw, probably 20 cars, investigator cars, and they needed to too. The investigators said when they got to Susan's property, they were taken back by the smell of decay and animal feces. And again, she didn't even have a bathroom. So you just guys can imagine. There was trash and stuff everywhere. It was like a case of hoarders, but the outside version, because there was no inside, no actual house. And I was looking at these photos going, how did she get all of this trash? Like, it almost looked like she just brought trash from the local dump to her property. Like, why did she have all of this stuff? And it had been piling up for years. I mean, again, they were completely just flabbergasted by the stench and the smell of these living conditions that not only she was living in, but other people over the years that were passerbys that come to live on her property to work for her. The investigators would later say that the pigs and chickens were just everywhere. And it was such an eerie feeling because it was so quiet. You've got all these farm animals walking around, and then the smell of decay is everywhere. There's flies everywhere, and it was just eerie to them. After they questioned Susan again, and she said that she hadn't seen Robert in 4 months, they let her know that they had a warrant and that they were going to search the property. Susan was like, okay, go ahead, search the property. I've told you what I've told you. He's not here. The investigators started walking around, and I mean, they were, flabbergasted by the things that they were seeing and just knowing that this woman was living out here like this. They saw this big area where it looked like she was building a pond, and eventually she was going to be, putting a house there and have this pond, and she was digging these big holes. And so they're walking around, like there's digging, the ground is disrupted. And one of the investigators sees something over on the ground, and he is shocked. It was a human bone. Now, the investigators would later say that a human bone and an animal bone is completely different. Like, you can tell the difference. You're not going to look at a human bone and think that it could belong to a dog. The investigator would actually say that immediately when he saw this bone, he knew that it was a leg bone that had been severed at the femur down to the toes. And it was just laying out there in the open. I mean, it had nothing was covering it. It was literally just laying there. Now, while the investigators saw this, Susan was still up at the front of the property talking to other investigators. And they called, investigators called other ones over. They saw it. They were taking pictures of it. They went over to Susan, and they did not tell her immediately what they saw. They asked her if she would go down to the station for questioning, and Susan agreed. Sure, fine, I'll go down there for questioning. When they asked Susan again on record as an interrogation or an interview if she knew where Robert was, she again said, no, I have not seen him since September. He just disappeared. When they told Susan that they found the leg, that is when she changed her story. And this is when she gave a very, very strange story that the investigators would say that they would never forget and that they had nightmares about. Susan said that one day she heard her pigs making all this noise, and she went over to the pig pen, and she loved these pigs. I mean, Susan would later say that she valued animals' lives and her pigs' lives over human life. She said, as a matter of fact, that if it wasn't for humans, all the animals would still be alive, wouldn't be extinct, even the dodo bird. She said that herself, even the dodo bird, which, I mean, you can't really argue with her about that. They probably would all still be alive. But she said that she valued animals and her pigs over human life any day. So she said that she walked to her pig pen and she saw her pigs in this just frenzy, and they were just going crazy. And when she took a closer look, she saw Robert laying there and that her pigs were eating him. She said that she was actually pretty sure that her pigs were eating him alive. She said that his guts were hanging out of his stomach and his intestines was everywhere, and the pigs were just eating.
They're licking his head. They need something to eat. There will always be something to eat. I have to feed them twice a day.
And he was actually laying there, moaning and moving. Because the investigators wanted to know, how do you know he was alive? She said, well, he was moaning and moving. She said that she decided that she was going to do for Robert what she does for her animals. She went back to her little area where she has her stuff. She grabbed her gun. She went back to where the pigs were and Robert was, and she shot him in the head in order to take him out of his misery. She said she didn't know what to do then, so she just left him there. She said she left him there for about 3 days and let the pigs finish having their fill with him. She said after 3 days, when they were done eating him, she went in with a black garbage bag and she scooped up what was left of him and she put it outside in a bag with the rest of the trash. She said that some wild animal must have come and gotten in the bag and pulled his leg bone out, was chewing on it, and that's why it was laying over there, you guys. Oh my gosh, I cannot believe this. This is so gross and sad. I mean, this was a human. This was somebody's dad. When the investigators asked her why she didn't just call the police, why didn't she tell them? She said she did not want her pigs to be put down. She loved her pigs, and it was later said that the only time that Susan actually showed any kind of remorse or emotion was when she was talking about her pigs. She did not want anything to happen to her pigs. As a matter of fact, like after they got finished questioning her, she was so concerned, like, make sure nothing happens to my pigs. Like that's where her head was at. The investigators were just shocked. They just could not believe what they just heard, especially the fact that she just decided to leave him there for 3 days and let the pigs just finish eating him.
They were doing their thing.
Ugh. So the investigators let her know that they were about to search that whole property up and down. They were going to tear it up. They were going to dig everything. Is there anything else Susan needed to tell them that they were going to find before they found it? Susan immediately just started crying. The investigators were like, oh no. She said, yes. She said, at this part of the pond where I was digging, you're going to find the remains of a man named Stephen Delicino. The investigators are like, what happened to Stephen Delicino? I mean, who is this person? Susan started telling them that in 2012, she put an ad on Craigslist. Y'all stay off of Craigslist. So many horror stories from Craigslist. Good Lord. For the same exact thing. She needed a handyman. She said Stephen Delicino came there to work for her. He had worked there for a bit. And she said his case was a little bit different. She said that Stephen Delicino got drunk one night and tried to attack her. When he tried to attack her, she shot him and he fell into the pig pen and the pigs ate him. Same exact thing. They just started ripping him apart and she left him there for a few days. And when they were done eating him, she scooped up his remains and she buried it. And sure enough, the exact spot where she said Stephen Delicino's body was, they found his bones. Now, Stephen's daughter would later give a statement in the TV show on Oxygen Snapped. She hadn't spoke to her dad in a long time now. She didn't say a whole lot. She just basically kind of called him like a wanderer, and that she always hoped to reconnect and build a relationship with her dad, and she felt like that was robbed from her. I don't know this, but the gist that I get from it was that he probably went on whatever kind of binges he went on, was gone for years or whatever at a time. I have a family member that's like that too. He just goes off, disappears. Sometimes I don't hear from him for 2-3 years. Sometimes he comes back, he's doing great, and then he does that again, and he's typically on something, okay? But nevertheless, when he disappeared, nobody reported him missing because that's just the kind of person that he was. He went missing all the time. The investigators would also ask Susan, is that it? Is that the only 2 people that have died on your property or that you've killed or anything like that? And Susan said, well, if I told you about the other 17 bodies, I'll never get out of prison. That's all she said about that. She never actually told anything. It is questioned if she was making a joke, which is obviously a very inappropriate joke. But those are the only 2 bodies that they were able to find. Now, in order to identify these 2 bodies because of the conditions, both of the bodies had the gunshots to them. Okay, now Susan would later tell a bunch of different stories in trials and trying to get out of this. At one point, she said Stephen Delicino shot himself in the head 5 times. Okay. I don't know how that's possible, but that's what she said, okay? Robert's body was identified by a finger. They were able to identify his finger that was actually his body. Stephen Delicino, he was such in a badly decayed that they had to identify him by comparing his bones to his brother's bones. Both sets of bones obviously had animal gnaws on them. So they knew that the animals, that's part of the story, was true. And then both of the, the gunshots to the head, they both had those. So they knew how it happened, but they didn't know exactly why it happened. They knew the story that she was giving, which was a self-defense story for both of these people. Now, Susan would take it to trial and try to claim self-defense. Her trial was in 2015, and you guys, this is a picture of her before the trial, and this is a picture of her at trial. When she was at the trial, I thought she looked really pretty, actually. She looked like an older woman. I'm not saying that she didn't look pretty before, but it was just kind of obvious that before the trial, she didn't really put a lot of effort into how she looked. Even the townspeople said that she was very dirty all the time. I mean, she didn't have a shower. She didn't even have a bathroom. So she was obviously dirty. Not trying to be ugly or say anything nasty about her, but she was dirty. A dirty old farm woman, okay, is what it was. At the trial, I actually thought she was the lawyer at first because she looked so different. She lost quite a bit of weight, assuming because she's in jail and the food or whatever. She could have been being mistreated in there. I don't know. She lost a bunch of weight, but the wig was so nice on her, and she had makeup on, and she looked so beautiful, in my opinion. She was found guilty. Different people came and testified, like the investigators, by saying what they saw, and different investigators saying that they had nightmares, still have nightmares, or traumatized. The prosecuting attorney said that he had nightmares about this case. I mean, you guys, I'm only telling you this much of the case. You can imagine the pictures they saw, what they read. I mean, I tried so hard to find the interrogation tapes. I mean, I searched for 2 days looking everywhere, all in the deep crevices of the internet, and I could not find anything that was not on Snapped, like the little bits and pieces. But I wanted to hear everything that she said, even though the whole case was hard to research. Now, what was probably one of the big nails in the coffin for Susan was another woman that was a cellie with Susan while she was in jail came and testified against her and showed a card that Susan had given her. And on the card, Susan signed it.
It says Happy B-Day from the sweetest murderer in Jackson County, Susan Monica.
The sweetest murderer in Jackson County. Now, when she was later questioned about that in court, Susan said it was a joke. It was a terrible joke, but the court took it as her basically admitting that she was a murderer, which is like literally the dumbest thing. Like, Susan, why did you do that? I mean, she did things like that was very, harmful to her own case, which I don't think, if she did everything perfect, I still think she was going to get found guilty, because even if everything she said was true, she let her pigs consume 2 humans and then chopped those pigs up and fed them to the community. You guys, I cannot, when I thought about this, we'll get to there. Long story short, with the trial, she was found guilty on both charges, and she got life sentences for both. But the life sentences are a minimum of 25 years, and then I think you can go up for parole. They're in Oregon in 2015 when she went to trial for this. And so she got 50 years minimum. She was 66 years old when she went to trial in 2015. So she will never get out of prison. I mean, unless she lives to be 106 and then gets out on parole, it's going to be a rough ride for girlfriend, but that's where she's at. Now, one of the investigators testified against her and said that she told him that she would feed him to the pigs. Like, why does she do that, Susan? Why? Like, I don't understand. Some of the things that she did was like, oh my gosh, girlfriend, like, you, even if everything you said was true, you messed yourself up so many times. What do I think? I think, and I could be completely wrong, this is just my personal opinion, the way that property looks, I cannot help but to wonder if they were doing drugs there. Like, I don't know if she was or not, but like, when I saw that, it looked like a meth community or something. Like, to the 2 men that we know for sure were killed on that property and passed on into their families, my condolences to them. Like, no matter what kind of people they were, they did not deserve this. But I do wonder if it was more than drinking that these 2 guys were doing, because I just don't know what kind of people could live in these conditions unless you were shot out of your mind, like on something crazy, because who can live in these conditions? I mean, even homeless people that live in the woods and area, they typically have, their little area. This was an insane amount of animal feces, and like, why? I don't understand. Unless, like I said, you were shot out of your mind on something. I don't know. And what she did, Susan, when she was in court and they played her confession tapes when she was being interrogated, she started breaking down, crying so bad that they had to like do a recess or whatever. It was so hard for her to listen to it. And if she cried about it afterwards, it makes me wonder again, if she was on drugs and shot out of her mind and not in touch with reality, which is not an excuse. I still think she should be in prison for life. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying any of that, but I can't help but to wonder, like, these people, how they could live in these conditions if they weren't on something. I don't know. That's just my personal opinion. Another thing, The people that came and bought pigs from her. Think about this. These people came and bought pigs thinking they was getting some organic meat to feed to their families. And these pigs have been eating humans. You guys, and this is it. And I know my animal lovers out there is going to be so mad at me because y'all was mad at me when I talked about Travis. Okay, if you guys have not watched the video on Travis the chimp, I can't even look at pigs the same right after this. This is what I mean by this changed me. The fact that pigs will literally just eat a human guts alive and all. What kind of pigs were those? Okay. Every pig I see online is a cute little pig, you know, little cute tail. And, you know, because pigs are very, very smart. I wanted a pig so bad. Okay. I've wanted one for years up until this story. Now I realize they need to be, no, thank you. They're cute. Animal lovers, y'all don't come for me, but I'm just telling you, I can't look at them the same. Like, they are smarter than dogs, okay? They say that pigs are smarter than like a 3-year-old child. Like, they're very, very smart. They were eating this man's, like, while he was alive, 2 of them for 3 days, just like going and taking a nap, like big old pig laying in the mud and then coming back to eat some more human. That is so gross. Again, I feel for the people. Like, I'm sorry that you guys lost your loved ones. I'm talking about how I feel about like pigs are nasty. Pigs are so nasty, you guys. I don't like pork any doggone ways. Like, I used to eat bacon, but I ain't eating no bacon no more after this. But pork at all, like a pork chop, I can't do it. And to know that these people fed these pigs to their families. And to Susan, I don't think that she thought about it like that when she was giving the pigs to the elderly people or when she was selling the pigs. I don't think she was thinking like, this pig meat, the reason why this pig meat is got so much fat on it is because I fed them a human. Oh my gosh, so gross, you guys. So yeah, that's it. I no longer want a pig. That's gross. What do you guys think? Have y'all heard about this story? I also think it's interesting that there's nothing about her family. Like, where's her mom or dad or brother or sister? Like, I do want to know what kind of childhood she had. Now, I know y'all are going to be mad at me because y'all always get mad when I look at all aspects, especially when a person does something terrible. But there was parts of things that Susan did and said that made me feel bad for her. Doesn't take anything from what she did. She still needs to be in prison for the rest of her life. What she did was absolutely disgusting. There's no excuse for it. But like, it just made me wonder like what she was thinking. Like what is going on in her head that she thought that this was okay? You know what I mean? Anyways, this is a wild one, you guys. Have you heard about this case? What do you think? Let me know in the comment section down below. As always, my loves, please do not forget to like this video. It's a free way that you can help your girl out. And until next time, I love you guys so, so, so very much. And I'll see y'all in the next video. Bye. Love you guys. Bye.